Hi there, this is Rishabh with yet another episode of Behind the Codes. And joining me today is Mr. Vibhor Mahajan. So, Vibhor is a technologist with more than a decade of experience. But what distinguishes him is his zeal to keep learning. I have seen him in a lot of conferences, a lot of meetups. He not only joins them, he is encouraging like the young people also to be the part of such meetups. And his personality is definitely inspiring. I mean, the way he is enthusiastic about sharing his thoughts and ideas, I'm sure that you're going to get a lot of value from this video. So let's get started. Hey Vibhor, how are you?
Hey, all well. Thank you, Rishabh.
So Vibhor, thank you so much for being here today. I mean, it's a pleasure to host you and an honor at the same time. So thanks a lot for accepting this proposal for being here. Now, before we start this conversation, I would like to ask, how has been your day so far?
The day has been great so far. Like I woke up well. I feel well rested, which is also, something rare lately. I had a newborn daughter and
Yeah.
she is like three months, not
Mm-hmm.
3 years. So the sleep schedule has been haywire. So I surprisingly, I'm very, well rested today. And, the day started also with one of the Joseph Jude conversations. You were also part of it.
Yeah.
So, right. So it was a great start of the day, having good conversation with good people. So
Okay. So
very happy today.
let's try our best to ensure that it continues like that only. And so let's get started. So the very first question here,
Mhm.
Vibhor, is that how exactly your journey as a technologist started? Like where exactly it started? What were the triggers? Who were the inspiration, or what product was the inspiration for you?
Okay. Again, I believe my journey started way back, in school when I was in fifth.
Okay.
Like this was the time when we had, those green monitors uh, and,
Yep.
floppy disks. So the school used to teach us uh, this programming language called Logo. So
Logo.
Logo has this turtle. Yeah. So Logo has this turtle that you can move around, you can draw things. And there was also GW Basic that was taught. Again, we couldn't make any sense of it. I flunked that class. I actually failed.
Okay.
I was given grace marks just to pass, so that again, no one failed ever in computer science. So, but I still have memories from it. Like it was like this device was always a source of fascination. Like I'd seen people like who were like seniors, people in ninth, 10th class, those
Mhm.
big Didi Bhaiyas. So
Okay.
they had created programs that could draw, very interesting shapes. So there would be, a wheel going around, drawing interesting, patterns. So that was, like a fascination. Like it always fascinated me. How do they
Mhm.
do it?
Okay.
And there were also rumors that using the computers, the anyone could monitor us anytime in the school.
Yes.
We
Yes.
we are
And
actually now in that kind of a state wherein we can have that surveillance. But
yep.
at that point in time, I had this thing.
Yep. Even
That
I remember
so
like
that was you.
when we
Yeah.
used to like go to the computer lab, the teachers, they used to ask us to remove the shoes. Maybe they assumed that the virus can actually enter the computer if we do not remove our shoes outside of the class. So I still have those memories. I mean, computer was kind of a mystery in those days, I would say.
I know. And we had an instruction not to press three keys together
Okay.
because that could screw up the computer. Maybe it
Ah,
was Control Alt Delete all along.
okay.
I have
Okay.
no clue.
Cool.
Now that we are talking, that I'm able to relate to it. But later, in my life, uh, my my aunt gifted me a computer,
I
like
see.
around when I was in ninth, like I was 14, 15 around then.
Okay.
So those were the times when we had, the cyber cafes, that kind of
Yes.
culture kicked in.
Yes.
So internet was that, fascinating thing. So anything was possible over the internet. You can email, which was such a mind blowing thing. We used to, exchange letters back then always.
So are we
Uh,
talking about late 90s or the early 20s?
so this would be around year 2000.
Around year 2000. Like computers were still new and cyber cafes were catching up in, I think, India at that time.
Yeah. So we
Okay.
had Windows. So to give you a context, so this was the time of Windows 95.
Okay. Okay. I think I would have been in class third by that time, maybe. So my
That is
first
quite
interaction,
possible.
yeah, my first interactions with the computer, maybe in that year only. Cool. And after which you went on to do BTech, right?
I did do BTech, but I started, my programming
Mm-hmm.
like right around 2000 itself.
2000. Okay.
So, but again, that was before Google.
Before. Oh my
Totally,
God.
it was an era you cannot even imagine. And how I learned or got introduced to, any kind of software was, we had static HTML pages back then,
Yes.
and
Yes.
the best you could do was make some text blink or flash.
Correct.
So So that was the exciting part. I bought a book, like a little book, and that's how I learned all the HTML tags. I created my own website. It was like, I don't know, catchwithmorelive.something.com or something like that. And I even created some posters, put it in my school. Look, my nice shiny website.
Nice.
And I did do a lot of Flash programming also. I created my school's website back then, and everyone loved it. So there has always been that recurrent theme in which I had, tryst with programming, and also, though that was the time of the Matrix. Everyone has seen the Matrix, right? Neo, you know
Yes.
the
Yes.
Matrix, right?
You're talking about the movie, right?
The movie,
Yes.
the
Yes.
movie Matrix.
Yeah.
So, so I had that fascination of being a hacker,
Got it.
and
Got it.
so I would download, this thing, something called a Frack magazine.
Mm-hmm.
It was for hackers,
Okay.
created by hackers. It was all ASCII magazine,
Okay.
and they would have, uh, very interesting articles, like even for cracking. How do you crack software?
Mm-hmm.
I learned even the uh, what do you call it? The assembly language. So I figured
So
out how do you
this was
disassemble.
all. This was
Yeah,
all before you were even into the college, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's
So
nice.
all back then.
Nice.
So this was around 9, 10th,
Mm-hmm.
11th.
Interesting.
Not so much in 11, 9, 10th. I did a lot more.
Okay.
And again, all that fascination of, that hacking,
Yes.
uh, right? So social engineering, I would read a lot of those articles. Also, it was a lot of fun. Like nothing of that sort worked over here. Like
Mm-hmm.
India is very different from US, and
Exactly.
all the things that those guys were talking about, how do you make free international calls, they're the kind of things
Yeah.
that they show in the old movies. So
Correct.
nothing of that sort worked over here. I tried in my phone. Pressing a sequence, it did not work out. But that has been, that kind of a common theme. That was my affinity towards technology, that kind of fascination, that sci-fi world of hackers, technology,
Exactly. Like,
being fascinated by the possibilities.
yep. Like if I talk about myself, well, I was fascinated by the cricket, EA Sports. I think cricket 2007 it was, and that's when my
Mhm.
fascination for C++ and Java, it was, I would say, it went exponential. And that's how I started doing programming myself. But I see that you talked about metrics. So like, did you ever thought of creating something of your own? Like, I had this weird dream of creating my own operating system one day.
Hmm. Like my uh, ideas have always been like utilitarian, like not so much.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, like how should I put it? Not so much academic in a way that like let's create an operating system to learn about it, which many people do, and I really respect that. The like my idea has always been like, for example, I'd seen this Hal, this chatbot.
Okay.
It's very old. Like now it's very pervasive. All these chatbots are in uh, like this in this day and age, so they are very common. But back then there was one like which came out. It's called Hal. So this was
Okay.
all paid software with some free trial. I tried it. So it was very fascinating to be able to talk to the computer, like
Mm-hmm.
chatting with it, saying good morning, getting a response back, the kind of things that people ask Siri, would you marry me?
Okay.
So that was pretty interesting. So when I was in BTech, I
Mm-hmm.
created my own
Oh,
as a
nice.
final year project, and it was interesting. I did it in Java.
Okay.
Um, I didn't know about NLP parsers.
Mm-hmm.
Created my own. Like I had to even learn context-free grammar. I read some Noam Chomsky texts, like what is natural English language, like what is the structure of it, parsing it, created that kind of a thing. That was like my goals have always been either my fancies or like how can I help someone. Like it's
Cool.
it's always about right. So if there's a need, uh, like how can I solve it using
Yeah.
programming. So
Yep.
that's always been my thing.
Cool. So, before, because we are talking about those initial times, I think the speed of internet in India was still an issue. Like if I talk about myself,
Hmm.
I remember when I was downloading the Java software for the first time, it took me about 3 to 4 hours to download some 80, 90 MBs. And later on, I realized that I downloaded the wrong software. Like I ended up downloading some Glassfish kind of a thing where I had to simply download the JDK. So did you face any such challenges in your journey?
That was definitely a challenge. Like not just about the download speeds, but not having a search engine. There was one, back then, Alta Vista wasn't that good at it.
Okay.
That's the one that I preferred. Download speeds were 32 kbps, 64 kbps, really expensive. If someone picks up a phone, your internet could die. It's total different problems. Like, but uh, again, the knowledge was gained by downloading these ASCII magazines and also finding them over. How do you find them? Like all this interesting stuff. Like I started doing something like torrents, not exactly torrents. So all of these were illegal downloads. Uh, like, I don't know. So you could search pretty much any file name, and you can find a list. So you would search for hack. So you'll find a list. So discovery itself was more of a challenge. Uh,
Yes,
and
exactly.
download speed definitely was you put something overnight, you sleep on it, and
Yep.
middle of the night you wake up, you see the progress, you cheer for it, please please progress.
Yeah, please download.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So those were exciting times.
Interesting. Okay, great. So now that you are a well-established professional, how do you see the difference in what do you think is the change from the time that you started your career to today? I believe there must have been a big change because my career obviously has been very small, but even in the small career I have seen a tremendous amount of change when it comes to technology. So I believe this is going to be a very good question to ask you, that what is the magnitude of change in your case?
Hmm. That's a good question. What is the change from then and now? I'm still curious. I still explore. What has changed though is like over the years, it's been like early in my programming, professional programming. It was more about how do I write good code? How do I collaborate better with the team? uh, Gradually, when the team grew, my responsibilities grew. It also became like, how do you coach the next generation of the team? Like,
Yes,
how do you, right? So how do you mentor the other engineers?
correct.
Then, you know gradually it kept spiraling this way. So your scope of influence keeps increasing.
Yes,
I figured out, it's not really about me or my team. Like, there are other issues also that affect my success or my project success. like like this, there are different kinds of stakeholders. There could be project managers, there could be, the end users. Like, I started learning about, like, how can I make sure that they are also successful, so that we are also successful. We create something, right? So
got it.
it's not so much about, right,
Yeah.
like, I'm successful, I created my software, but everyone else goes to hell. So
Hmm.
then I started learning about, like, why project management, who are project managers, what are those goals, so what are good software engineering principles. So started reading about those. I was able to have good conversations with project managers. People came, sometimes what happens is, like, people come to you and say, CMMI mein aise hota hai. Like, CMMI says this thing, that's why you have to do this thing. So it was a way of, making sure that you can have a meaningful discussion with those people and say, no, like, this is the context, this is where it fits, this does not fit over here. So
Yep.
that's what, gave me high, being able to, converse with those, senior people. Gradually over the years, then that influence kept increasing. Like, two further layers, it's like an onion, you keep peeling. You figure out that after project manager there are also, right, so there are larger delivery managers, then there's the customer also, like, there's a huge change. So there could be, manager delivery, there could be, director delivery, there could be CTO. So, and after that there could be the board members and investors. Everyone has their own agendas being. So it's always been about discovery. So, like, I have always been also curious about people. So it's never really about software as an end to, uh, in itself. Like, it's always been a tool to make people successful. So
Yes.
my philosophy has changed over the time. Like, I've been more in tune with, like, what motivates different kinds of people, what are the purposes that they have, how can I use my skills, my knowledge over the years, how can I make those people successful by applying my knowledge. So those kind of things have changed over the time.
Interesting. In context of, let's say, technology, what kind of change do you see?
Mhm.
Like, this is where you started off with, and how things are now in that side of the game.
Mhm. When I started my professional programming, so it was with ERWin. So this is a desktop application created only for Windows.
Oh, okay.
It did not have any other ports also. Uh, from that to, like, everything being available cross-platform also, and then, everything available as a web application also. Like, things have changed over the time. Like,
Yes.
I'm talking about the time when Ajax was cool. Like, when Gmail was able to, render new email without
Yes.
refreshing the page.
Correct.
So that was supposed to be wow.
Yep. And some
Like
suggestions
it
for
was
Google, I
mind blowing.
think, they came around the same time.
Yeah. So
Yep.
they did. And, two, now, with the serverless, also that reactive programming models, it makes a lot of sense. This whole evolution that has happened,
Yep.
like making, uh, like making it, these applications more resource conservative. Like, you don't have to have one machine, one application. You can, have common infrastructure also. Then making this computing power as a commodity. Like, on the fly, you just need, for 2 seconds you need some computing power, then off you go. Then also reacting to things versus polling for things. All those models have evolved. There have been a lot of practical applications earlier also. But this advent of all the new technologies, AWS, Lambda, right, that was the first one. So all of that is really exciting.
Cool. So, like, there is one funny question here which I would like to ask you. It comes directly from my own experience as well. Initially, when I used to talk about cloud to people, well, I used to see that they really have, like, I'm talking about mentors or the teachers at college. They used to have problems explaining the cloud to me. But then I became a professional. Then I started exploring things on my own, and then I realized that it was nothing more than just on the computer, which is just on the network, and I just have to access it via
Eh,
SSH. So, do you have any such funny incidents to share wherein you used to think of a technology as something very complex, but when you explored it, you found that no, it was just like any other technology?
mm. Like I can talk about like not technology, but when it comes down to management itself,
Okay.
I used to think of it as something very fancy, and these people who know everything, who take great decisions,
Mm-hmm.
like as somehow demigods. Like they like I had convinced myself, why not, like again, every engineer in India, the next thing is right MBA. So you have to have an MBA, MBA, and BTech. It increases your scope. So
Yeah,
that's
correct.
the term used, right?
Yeah.
So I was very clear about it. No MBA. I
Okay.
cannot make decisions well. So that's what I used to say. I cannot make good decisions. I know I'm not a leader. I won't do MBA. I don't want to do management. I'm great at talking to computers. I don't want to talk to people.
Okay.
So, but over the years, like I've realized that no one knows Jack. Everyone is, you know, putting in
Oh,
some bets. Like it's 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 not even people have some kind of a strategy to back it up, and not talking about everyone, most of the people.
okay.
And like my idea is as good as anyone else's. My decision is as good as anyone else's. And there are theories also, like big decisions taken by a coin toss are equally, they fare out equally well. They have equal chance of success.
That's nice.
So that's been a aha moment, and I realized this thing early, very early in my career. And
Okay.
I also realized that people have the same kind of fears. Everyone has that imposter syndrome. It could have been my manager. Everyone wants to be loved. Everyone wants, uh, right, to make a difference. So Maslow's theory works on everyone. Um, so again, understanding humans, that has been, uh, more intriguing. And I had wrong notions about people that I've clarified over time.
So was there any specific incident when this enlightenment came to me that yes, this is something I can do it, and it's like very simple kind of a thing?
It wasn't like one thing. Like this is more of a philosophy that evolved by uh, observing, like
Okay.
after getting into work, like how people are making decisions, like how they interact with each other, like
Mm-hmm.
the human dynamics playing around, like how are the people setting the priorities, also how are they giving tasks to people, like
Yeah.
how do they evaluate other people, also like who is a good engineer, who gets rewarded, who doesn't, like is
Mm-hmm.
there a reason behind it, like
Okay.
you try to, as a software engineer, you try to put it in boolean, so black or white, but
Correct.
realize there are a lot of gray areas.
Yeah.
So those
So
were a
were
lot of
there
my
any
personal thoughts. Yeah, go ahead.
so were there any beliefs or myths on your side which were actually broken when you realized all this? Like let's say when a professional is new into the market, he's just done the BTech. He always is carrying some kind of beliefs in his mind. So were there any such beliefs you used to carry which were broken after you saw the professional world?
So one belief that I had was like years of experience, you know, is a good indicator of how good a programmer is.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one belief that I had, which was
Okay, it
not
was
true.
busted.
It was busted. Like, so expecting that, someone with a bigger title has
Mhm.
better ideas and, better understanding of how to do things right. And not to belittle my mentors. Like, I've been taught amazing things. Like, even I did an internship before actually joined that job.
Okay.
So I was taught by my mentors. So one of them is Deepak Methani. Like, I'm totally indebted by that guy. Like, he gave me a challenge to code,
Mhm.
and after I coded, so he he challenged me on how do you do it better. Like, he introduced me to design patterns,
Got it.
like, during the internship. So again, this was like wow moment. Like, my this much code with lots of switches, it reduced and
Interesting.
it became more elegant. So that elegance, like how do you write elegant code? So it cannot be done without good mentoring. Having good mentors definitely is required, but expecting that your mentors know everything, like even with, uh, let's say this one, like if you have watched this movie Dangal, it's about that,
Yeah. Yeah.
wrestling. So you need different kinds of mentors at different stages of your career. Like, the father was able to mentor the daughter and reach a certain level, but then for to play international, you also need an international coach.
Okay, great, Vipur. So the next question will be that what do you think is a good or great path to becoming a technologist or a software engineer?
Okay. So if you are a person, like who is fascinated by technology or has a great affinity towards technology, I would recommend you to do a lot of things. Like, don't worry about a particular path. Like Vibhor's path, you cannot, you know, take step by step. For example, like how would you find that Frack magazine also? It does not exist anymore. I tried finding it. So, you will have your own experiences. So, number one, be continue being curious, try a lot of things, do a lot of things. Don't just, fantasize about it. Create things, create in public, as one of our mentors also says, Joseph
Yeah,
Jude.
create in public.
So create in public. Uh, you can, like, if you have an affinity towards creating code, contribute to open source so that people can also give you feedback. Or
Yeah.
let's say a lot of, recently a lot of applications came out that give you a notification when COVID slot, this vaccination slots open up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, finding these kind of problems in the world, try to solve them, release them, get feedback. What do people say? Did they actually find it helpful or not? You might think that you are the best guy out there.
Yeah.
Getting a lot of feedback, participate in hackathons, contribute to open source, um, get good mentors, get a good network, like have these kind of conversations like Rishabh and I we are having. Like have a network of your own, talk to other people, uh, and enjoy your life to the fullest. It's maximize your value to the society. Like
Of course. Yeah.
technology is one such tool, and which can be a game changer also. Like find out what is that gap in the world, try to fill it with technology, and why not?
Cool. Interesting. So now that, of course, I believe you must have hired hundreds of people. So what are the top three qualities which you look for when you are hiring somebody?
Okay. So one of the qualities which I look for uh, is number one, an affinity towards technology. Like, would the person, enjoy coding, or is it, uh, more of an obligation just to earn money? But let me back up a little. Like, I've hired over time for different kinds of roles also,
Okay.
and number one, I have to say, like, there's value in all kinds of people, and it, we try to imagine software engineering as writing code, which a lot of it is, but there are different kind of aspects to it. Like it's combined. It's seen from 10,000 foot view. You're creating software, but that also, like, you can be creating a product. Like, it can be early stage, value proposition, like a product to a customer, or it could be an enterprisey, tool utility which you're creating with a certain set of captive audience, like
Yeah.
who have no alternatives, right? And enough capacity, computing power also. Then you could be also doing sustenance engineering. You, you know, People report bugs, you fix those bugs. Then there's also customer support. So different people with different characteristics are well suited for different kinds of these roles. And if you put, you know, a wrong person in the wrong role, then also, people fail. Like if Rishabh is that guy, product guy, full stack engineer, loves creating, new things. If I put him in sustenance engineering, uh, he will probably, leave the next month. Uh,
Yep.
Potentially, he might not enjoy it. Although everyone should experience it, I highly recommend it as a certain portion of your time, like getting that kind of end user feedback also, like what is not working in your thing. But to back to your question, like what are the things that I look for? Number one, like I've seen people getting successful at software engineering, no matter what this broader gambit of delivery, or at the phases, or segments of software engineering. What I've seen is curiosity. Curious people, they succeed better.
Okay.
People uh, who can empathize with other people, like who can understand, like what are the end user pains, like they
Yes.
also succeed better. Or like if I have good empathy for my fellow developers, I'll write cleaner code, so that my friend Rishabh, when he has to extend my code, then he does not curse me. So giving him a better user experience also. So
Yep.
those kind of things, right? So being conscious of other people, and their emotions also, and experiences. um, Having good work ethics, in terms of, like, I've seen a lot of people do unfair practices at work,
Okay.
uh, wherein they would neglect their day job and do freelancing,
Ah.
and they would report in sick. um, Again, I've never minded anyone doing it, like freelancing.
Mhm.
I really believe that it gives people broader set of experience, and
Okay.
they bring it back into the work. But if they are sacrificing the projects at work, the day job, just
Mhm.
because they have to complete an assignment, that goes into unfair. Like, I don't mind
Yeah.
people doing whatever with their outside data, like whatever they do. uh, but if they are not ethical, that's where people fail.
That's correct. That's correct. Cool.
So three things.
Very
Yeah.
nice. Great. So now another interesting question we have. Well, I have had this discussion with a lot of people, and this is more of an opinion based question, I would say. So journalism versus becoming an expert in one thing. So what do you prefer, or like how do you see it? Should we go for one specific skill and become the master of it, versus we should broaden our skills?
Hmm. Like, I've personally been a journalist. Um, Again, when I started my career, I did go in deeper into C++, because again, it was my day job, and I had to contribute, and I really uh, am thankful to myself. I did. So having those stronger foundations. So
Yes.
foundations in software engineering, and using maybe a language or two languages as a base. and then building a broader technology experience around it. So that was my approach. But like it can, I would say, I would like to believe that it can change. Like you can be successful in both. I would strongly recommend like going T-shaped, at
Okay.
least at the start of your career, building some kind of a strong anchor,
Hmm.
and then choosing certain paths like based on the opportunities also that present. For example, like I would really need a specialist when it comes down to say DB tuning, like performance tuning. I have no clue like how do you do it?
Yeah.
Then I don't want to either because I don't have to. Like I can potentially hire someone to do so. But if I have a need for that kind of a person, then there's also that job and need also.
Correct.
That person will also be successful because that person has invested a lot of time going in deep into, let's say, Postgres. Like how do you improve the performance?
Yeah.
So that is totally valuable. It's all about like what suits you and what do you find interesting. Like you can succeed either way.
So, to summarize what you said is, it's more of an individual choice. I mean, as per your answer, and whatsoever an individual finds interesting, he can make it a success.
Right. So again, don't go by Rishabh's version of it or Vibhor's version of it. Like
Yeah.
whatever made Rishabh successful or Vibhor successful, find your own path. Like
Yeah.
do experiments, right? 3 month experiments, create your
Exactly.
long term goals, right?
Yeah.
Inspect and adapt what's working for you. It also depends on the environment that you're in. Like uh, if you're working for a company, like many a times you don't get to choose your first job or your first assignment. You don't know. Like make the most of it. Like find ways of being successful at it. If you were hired as a DB admin, start off your job, like be the best DB admin out
Yeah.
there. Give your 10x value to that job. uh, Whatever salary that you draw, they give 10 times value back to your employer, or any situation. Like if you're a freelancer, give 10x value back to your customer. uh, if it means going in deep into something, do it.
Okay. Very nice. Cool. And coming to the leadership part now. So let's say you have to introduce a new practice in your team, something which the team is not accustomed to, they are not doing it. So, what is your way of doing it?
So about like 1 to 2 years ago, I noticed this issue in which how we do Salesforce development. So it wasn't following certain good practices. For example, people could make changes in production
Oh, okay.
without having any kind of a staging environment testing or something like that. Potentially, like it's not like they were always doing it, but anyone could have pushed out a hot fix
Okay.
into production without any kind of a review. Also, there was there was no way of tracing back what actually even changed, and it's not really the developers who are bad. Uh, like I've learned this one thing over time. It's never about the individuals. Like everyone wants to be successful. Everyone has good intentions.
Yes.
All the developers who I've come across, they're all good people, good-hearted people. They want to give their best. It's many a times the community also. For example, the PHP community, it was notorious for writing a lot of bad code, lots of security vulnerabilities also, right?
Yep.
Then the Rails community came in, learned from all those mistakes, gave some good defaults. So that community had that kind of a mindset.
Correct.
So the framework gave a lot of good defaults.
Exactly.
That PHP community, right? So all the when you are learning something new in PHP, the first tutorial they show you on the top of the page, you open a DB connection to MySQL, right? If the So if you're a young developer and that's the first thing that you learned, that's how you do it. That's what you'll carry forward.
That's
So
true.
that's also been one of those issues with the Salesforce community. So one thing that I do in order to bring in good change is like you have to have a lot of patience. It takes time. So setting your right expectations with yourself also that it will take time. Secondly, taking a buy-in with the team that there's a problem that exists. Like, what is the vision? Is there even a problem? Like, what can go wrong? And
Yeah.
it's never about passing an audit. It's never about CMMI, will get upset, right? So knowing that this kind of a problem can happen and what is the downside to it, like who gets affected? Like, who are the people? Like, bring in people into the story. Like, if a bug comes into production, what would happen? Like potentially, so this customer is a lending customer. So if people are not able to apply for loans, like what can go wrong? Like potentially, like someone was in urgent need of money. Maybe the person wasn't able to apply for a loan, and there could be some hardship faced by that person, hypothetically.
It's
But
like connecting to
that's
the problem more is, I think, what you.
right. Empathizing with people and the problem, like that
Yes.
people can face. And one problem can also be like, how would the developers face problem? For example, if we have a production issue,
Mhm.
potentially we can be woken up in the middle of the night
Yeah.
and work over the weekends, lose peace of mind, family life, right? So if you don't have good practices, we won't be able to have a consistent 8 day uh,
Exactly.
cadence
So
and
it's like,
potentially
I think, at
be
the end of the day,
disrupted anytime.
yep, having less
Hmm?
control in a way. Like, I mean, there's
Right.
absolutely no
So
monitoring in
we don't
place.
know.
Yep.
Right. So there's always that mental stress.
Yep.
Something can go wrong. You know
Exactly.
that you have done something, right?
Yeah.
You can stress out over the weekend. I would rather have peace of mind than worry about it. So what do we do? Like rather than saying, okay, this is what you do. This is what version control is. This is what CI/CD is. Like giving it as a challenge to the team to strategize rather than telling like how to do it, asking the team to come up with solutions, and if they are not able to, like giving them good defaults.
Oh, okay.
So it took a while, and many times what happens is if you have a lot of stakeholders, like not just you have a certain scope of influence. Like if like we have teams who are contributing to this code base across 3 different countries, so not all of them are our employees. Like how
Yes.
do you introduce this kind of a change management across also? Like I've never in my life ever had to bring in my role power, like do something because I say so. It's always been on influence. Like I've always practiced that muscle, like never to do so.
Okay.
And more so because like many times those people are also not reporting to me, like my customers team or customers other vendor. Like how do you cannot do it with them. Like how do you create a good rapport with them? uh, like I have a good rapport with my customers vendor also, like their team. Uh, like one of the guys I was actually like he is in Colombia. Like
Okay.
we were uh, um like over the time we have formed a good relation. Like we were also exchanging kids pictures, and we discuss those kind of issues also. Like zero role power, but I know like when I'm having a discussion with that person, if there's a issue that we face, like we'll together be able to solve it.
Yeah.
Like, right? So I can introduce a better change management that way. So it's always been like form uh, true relations with everyone, help everyone become successful. Like it does not matter if they are your customers, your team, some third party, creating good human bonds. And then it's easier to bring in this kind of a change management. So ideas were like number one, aligning to a common vision and problem statement. Second is uh, helping the people. come up with the solutions rather than pres- prescribing by default solutions. Third is building true relationships or genuine human relationships with everyone who you meet in order to bring these kind of changes more easily.
Very insightful. Very insightful. I think it was quite enlightening for all, for me. I believe for all those who are watching this video. Great. And like out of this, only a new question comes up. Let's say there is a conflict between two developers in your team, and they both come up with their solutions. Now you are the person who has to resolve that conflict. So, what is your way of doing that?
Okay.
So, has that ever happened? I mean, I would love to hear
It has
some.
definitely happened.
Yeah.
Like one such example was React versus Angular,
Okay.
like the
Very
religious
common.
wars. Then, then there's also about the old people versus new people
Okay.
coming out. How do you integrate those people in the team? Also, there can be friction over there. Uh, so again, over the time, I've seen these kind of challenges. Again, it requires also some kind of a patience for a longer fix. Short term fix, it's always about like let's agree upon a common problem statement first. Like what are we trying to solve?
Okay.
So formality helps over there. For example, if you ask any CMMI person, like what are the things for compliance that you need, they'll also say DAR. So decision analysis and resolution. So many times when it comes down to okay, Angular versus React, like what are we trying to achieve? So
Okay.
many
Like
times people will
focusing on
come
the
up
problem
huh?
more, focusing on the problem more, and
Right.
let's say using technology just as a tool, rather than attaching to the technology, attach yourself to the problem.
Yeah. For example, the one of the developers he had like React is faster than Angular. Okay,
Yeah.
let's put it over there. So speed. So let's do some benchmarks. Like how can we do some experiment in order to arrive at this kind of a conclusion? Like which one is faster and why not? Then another could be like again, I added another aspect to it, which is that one in which we already have certain skills, maybe in house,
Yes.
or how easy it is to hire or onboard new people.
Yeah.
So that can be another factor. So, bringing in different kind of perspectives over there. So people respect that. And, it's like always a win-win, like understanding different kinds of perspectives.
Exactly.
The longer term thing is, when it comes down to like it happens over time. Like you observe certain things about certain people and you conclude, you have certain conclusions in your mind that you arrive at. For example, a manager might see that this person leaves by 6, another person stays back until 10.
Yeah.
So this person who leaves at 6 is probably lazy, does not uh, work hard enough, right?
Yeah.
So that could be a conclusion that person might arrive at. There are certain mental models, like there's something called ladder of inference. So how do you arrive at the conclusion? Through a series of steps rather than jumping from observation to conclusion. That has helped personally me uh, to avoid these kind of biases in my own mind
Okay.
when it comes down to dealing with people. It could be with customers also, it could be with peers, it could be with reports. Uh, so, when you observe this kind of a thing, also validate your idea, talk to people,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So, say, like, this is what I observed, this is what I think. Like, perhaps that person might add more context. Maybe that person comes in at 6 and leaves at 6, maybe working overtime.
Correct. So like looking into
And
deeper,
you are not there.
looking deeper basically, and then adding some filters, I would say, right? So there is an input,
Right.
add some filters, and only then make a conclusion probably.
And also, another tactic that I've seen, like the power of tea and alcohol, like that has resolved a lot of conflicts. over
Oh,
time and human touch, I've noticed, something changes when you meet the person in person versus, talking over electronic media, and also, socializing like
yes.
over, tea, maybe going, for a walk, having a tea in the IT park. You have seen that environment in
Yeah,
Chandigarh.
yeah,
So
correct.
having those tea stalls, having a walk over there, um, like I've personally seen things change a lot. Like
Okay.
once I actually met them, like it would be with customers. Like one of the customers asked to fire me. Like this was like about 10 years ago, like
Okay.
because I'm very rude. But when I actually visited them and, we worked together, uh, the things changed. Like I was the only person that those guys ever wanted. So,
Interesting.
so that thing changes. So, so those are the things which I prescribe to anyone.
Cool. Interesting. Okay, nice. So now that we are living in this digital world, I would like to ask you that what are the websites or the mobile apps which you invest most of your time on?
Okay. Like I'm generally not very uh, digital friendly. Like I try not using my phone
Okay.
most of the time. But when I do, like I spend a lot of time. Like again, I'm not talking about the productivity apps. Like of course, there's a lot of Zoom, Google Meet that I do, email, of course, I would use
Yeah.
the phone for. When it comes down to, uh, non-work related things, like I've used LinkedIn a lot,
Okay.
uh, Instagram, like half an hour. I love dog videos.
Okay.
So
So
if you open my feed, there'll be all funny puppy videos. Huh?
do you have a pet dog at home?
I used to have one.
Okay.
So he died of old age,
Ah,
like a couple of years ago. So
okay. So on LinkedIn,
again,
what
I
is
love puppy videos.
okay, got it. So on LinkedIn, what exactly is your approach? Like you interact with those who are known to you, or you use LinkedIn as a way to connect with new people also?
So LinkedIn has been like I've used LinkedIn as a source of news also, like what's going on. Generally, like people who I follow, for example, uh, I follow like Dave Snowden, like he would, uh, comment on something interesting and it would show up in the feed. Then you get to know about that also. So, or let's say, how did I know about, your this program that you run,
Oh
like that
yes,
was through LinkedIn.
exactly.
I saw one of the posts that you have posted, and and that's how I found it. So it's more about networking also, like with good people, following them, finding good insights, and um that's pretty much it.
Cool, great. Okay, so coming to the next part, now we have talked about
Mhm.
technology, we have talked about your experiences. Now we would like to know about your hobbies. So, like, what are your hobbies apart from technology? Because technology is something you're passionate about that we already know.
Right. So, like lately, like I've been spending a lot of time with my newborn daughter. So, free play with her.
Okay,
That's been a great pastime.
okay, cool.
Um, I did pick up, uh, you know, tennis as a sport. I've never played sports much, but when I, started playing tennis, I've really loved it.
Okay,
That's stayed with me for more than a couple of years.
I see.
Then having walks in nature, like we have that nature trail behind Sukna Lake.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I've really enjoyed it. I can
Okay,
do it every day. So that's what I love, like, apart
interesting.
from work.
Okay, so like any books you read, or like
Mhm.
any documentaries or anything like that?
I definitely do. Like I've read both fiction and non-fiction. Like we were talking about this morning. So
Oh,
in fiction, I've loved inspirational stories. For example, Fountainhead is one of those books that have inspired me. Ayn Rand books, like I've read couple, Atlas Shrugged and Fountainhead. The another one is uh, which is that Paulo Coelho book, the famous one.
The
Uh,
Alchemist.
I'm forgetting the name. Huh? Alchemist.
Alchemist. Yep.
So that has been one interesting read. Then I've loved Dan Brown novels. It's more like watching a movie.
Oh, okay.
So that's that side of it. And for philosophy, I've read um, this book called Mastery by Robert Greene. So it's
Okay.
about like how do you master a skill over time? Like how do you get apprenticeship? How do you grow over time? And there's one book related to our field, software engineering. So it is the um, pragmatic programmer, the
Pragmatic
you
program.
know,
Okay.
journey from journeyman to master. I think this author was also, or there are a couple of authors. They were also inspired by mastery. So there's a common theme to it. Other than that, like I've read a lot of productivity books, management books over time. I don't read them religiously, but it's more about okay, there's a gist that you get. Like what's the author trying to give you? Like for example, this one called Getting Things Done.
Okay.
So it's about don't keep everything in your mind. Like write everything down.
Got it.
So if there's a problem that you are trying to think about, write it down. If there's a something that you need to do, like a to-do list, write it down. So that was the gist of it. Like I can read the whole book. Like he prescribes like how do you go from that written down idea, how do you classify it, go further. uh, but the idea was the same.
Cool. Great. Now, an interesting question. Let's say if you
Mhm.
are not a technologist, what else would you be?
If I wasn't a technologist, what would I have been? Hmm. Let's see. I did uh, find some fondness to psychology also.
Okay.
Uh, there was a Orkut group like back in about 2004 to 8. I was in college. So this the name of the group was psychology. I
Okay.
was really fond of it. Like I've read some books on it, and I've had some thought process. I've liked the evolutionary psychology, like how our uh, evolutionary choices might have influenced like how we think, like how the kind of biases that we have, how we approach different things. So I used to have those kind of insights to people's problems.
Got
Like
it.
so people would post their problems like this is the thing that I'm struggling with. I would put in, okay, here's a book that I read, this is what he talks about. And this could be source of, like, it's probably not you, like this is how we have been brought up or something like that. uh, I was also voted as one of the most valuable contributors to it.
Oh,
So I could have been a psychologist also.
cool.
Like,
But I think being a product head, you are automatically a psychologist, isn't it? You have to understand the
yeah,
brains of the customers and before developing a product and coming up with a good UX and then getting the team together. A lot of things I would say it relates to understanding the minds of people somewhere. What are your
it has
thoughts?
definitely helped me. It has definitely helped me being able to listen to people. like trying to find out like what are the motivations and goals. Like that's what psychologists also do, right? They
Yeah,
would try to listen to your problems, spend more time listening,
correct.
understanding uh, like what could be the hidden side of it. So there are things that you say, and there are things that you have to perceive, that
Correct. Correct.
what might be hidden beneath what you're saying, or you believe something, but what could be the root of the belief. That has definitely helped, like when it comes down to, let's say, interviewing the end user.
Yes.
uh, the end user might say that this is what they need, but why? Like asking good questions about why. Like I picked up this very nice framework called X Matrix, and
Excellent.
yeah, I attended a this thing, like a workshop on change management. So in this, they introduced this tool called Clean Language. So if someone is interested, search for it, Clean Language. It has a certain set of questions used by journalists and probably also psychologists to not influence your answer, but you know getting your perspective out.
Okay.
So uh,
That's interesting.
so over the time, I've also learned these kind of things that have helped elicit those kind of hidden agendas also, and not in a negative way,
Of
but
course. Yeah.
getting down to the root of it.
Very interesting. Cool. Thanks for this insightful answer. Great. So, this
Mhm.
brings me to the last question for this session. And it is, what do you think are some of the trends in your tech? Like, where do you see tech going in the coming few years?
Mhm. Okay, like I've contributed a lot to fintech like app development and projects. Many of my customers have been fintech companies. Like one thing that I see is traditionally, like if you are a lender, like you would give out loans based on uh, your past history.
Hmm.
For example, uh, like over the years, what's been your credit score, like
Yeah,
which builds over the years, of course. uh, but that leaves out a lot of people. For example, if today Rishabh moves over to US, like Rishabh has zero credit history.
exactly. Yeah.
So there is no way of anyone to figure out, a lender wouldn't be able to figure out the credit worthiness. But
Oh,
there could be other factors also that people are now tapping into. um, it could be maybe your education or your job profile, like what is the credit worthiness of a software engineer,
exactly.
right? And there are some alternate credit bureaus now that are tapping into all these metrics to give a better holistic profile. Or maybe, like, why not even consult Indian credit bureau also? Like I see, maybe there could be a global collaboration between these credit bureaus also, potentially. Like why limit to one country's credit worthiness? Like you have lived all your life over here, why not consider that also? Like no one is doing it, potentially that can work out.
Interesting. Now,
That's
that's
one that I see.
because both of us are technologists. I think I will have to add this one. Do you see that blockchain can play a role in this?
Blockchain can actually play a role in this, because here's where it could be a mistrust between two countries.
Yeah,
So when it comes down to that, uh, anywhere where you have mistrust, you blockchain acts as that common uh, medium to bridge that gap. But at the same time, if it is two credit bureaus collaborating, then it's only two parties. That's where blockchain also fails. Unless you have lots of parties involved in the network, that's where it succeeds. What I've also thought about, an alternative to blockchain Like if you think about event sourcing
Okay.
as a pattern, uh, it can also give you guarantees like of a certain sequence of events, uh, just as blockchain also does,
Hmm.
right? You cannot rewrite it, like having a read only or append only log,
Yep. Yep.
right? And if you can guarantee its correctness, so that also solves it. So even if it is about having a centralized system, there are ways, like we have to target what is the problem that we are trying to solve, and blockchain is one such tool.
Yes.
Many times people don't realize there could be other tools also to solve
Correct.
the same problem.
Correct. Yep.
And blockchains are also slow when it comes down to transactions.
Yep.
Still, it has a lot of value, like when it comes down to currencies. Like China has launched a digital currency, digital yen, which is amazing. Uh,
Exactly.
so again, I'll have to meditate more on this kind of a concept. Maybe like how can this actually happen over blockchain?
Interesting. Okay, great. So thanks a lot, Vibhor, for being here. And I think uh, this was a very valuable discussion. The points which you came up with, the experiences which you shared, the ideas which you shared, I'm sure that these are going to be very valuable for the audience of this video session. So thanks a lot.
Oh, thank you for having me, Rishabh. Thank you for your time.
Cool. So, guys, this was Vibhor Mahajan, and he shared a lot of interesting experiences with us. I hope you found this video to be valuable. If you think others in your network can benefit from this video, please feel free to share. And this is me, Rishabh, signing off. Till the next time, bye bye and stay safe.